Most of us.
But maybe some non-Muslims.
Okay, any non-Muslims? Yeah, good. All right. I'm gonna say it again, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونتوب إليه ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فهو مهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له من أولياء من دونه وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. الحمد لله الذي أنار قلوب عباده المتقين بنور كتابه المبين وجعل القرآن شفاء لما في الصدور وهدى ورحمة للمؤمنين. As always, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we open up in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most compassionate. We praise Him and we thank Him for everything, all of His bounties. We thank Him for giving us life, creating us from nothing, and then creating us from a despicable piece of substance called nutfa in Arabic, which is sperm. And then He took that and molded it inside the wombs of our mothers. And then He honored us with the faculties of hearing and seeing and being able to utilize our intellect and all these favors that He has given us after coming from such a lowly substance. You see, so therefore, what right do we have to be arrogant when we all come from an unclean substance? You see, and that's why Allah Azza wa Jal reminds us about this over and over in the Quran, because man has this natural propensity or this natural inclination to think that he's somebody once he has gotten older and intelligent and began to start being, having a feeling like he has control over things, which Allah has created this earth and then made things subservient to us. And Allah mentions that in the Quran, that sakhara lakum, ash-shams wal-qamar, that He's made subservient to us the sun rises for our benefit, the moon does its things for our benefit, the heavens and the earth, everything is for our benefit. We didn't create those things. He created it for us, custom and tailor-made it in order to accommodate us, but then we come here and just ignore Him and just don't want to worship Him, and that's foolishness. And that's the reason why Allah mentions about the consequences of people who ignore Him. There's a punishment for it. You see, so us as Muslims, we as believers, those people who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're here to try our best to fight the temptation of becoming in a state of what they call in Arabic ghafla, which is like a state of heedlessness. So that's why we're here today. We're here to talk about the symptoms. We're here to talk about the heart and how this is where shaitan attacks. You notice when Allah says in the Quran, what does shaitan do? Yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas, that he whispers where? He don't whispers outside. He whispers in the heart. He whispers in the breast of man. This is what shaitan is constantly doing. He don't even whisper here, because we could outsmart or intellectually deal with shaitan. But he's trying to exploit those diseases that's in the heart, because when you love something, no matter what your mind tell you, your heart has a tendency to supersede your mind because of the love and the attachment. So Allah Azza wa Jal is telling us in the Quran to be conscious of your heart more than your outward actions. Okay, so I thank Allah for giving me this opportunity to come here. I'm not going to be long. I just want to be as concise, but give some substance, some things for us to kind of take a look at. Why? Because all of us have some kind of disease in our hearts. Every single one of us. We may have one disease, we may have two, we may have three, but every single one of us, including myself, have some type of infection, some type of disease in the heart, and we can take a nonchalant attitude and say, hey, I don't care, or we can try to deal with it and utilize what Allah has given us to remedy it, because this will be the basis of your success and your salvation in the next life, the day of resurrection. So again, I open up thanking Allah for giving me this opportunity to come here. I thank the MSA for having this program here in Purdue. And no, I know I had him. I just idiot don't even know where he's at. hard, Dad. So I'm always happy to, come and be a part of any event to where I can share something that could be of some benefit. So when we talk about the heart, many times because of our religion and our deen, it talks so much about the outward actions. Okay, it's talking about the salat, so we see people making salat, talk about zakat, giving charity, making our prayers, fasting Ramadan, making hajj. These are all outward actions. Okay, so the first part is Islam are those things that are zahir, those things that are outward. Now, if you notice that when Allah talks about the iman, belief, then he talks about those things that we call batin, those things that are inside, belief in Allah, belief in the angels, belief in the books, belief in the day of judgment, belief in all the prophets. You see, those are things in which you can't see. Those things are deep inside. So now, sometimes a person may come into the fold of Islam and still have things in their hearts that may take years to remove. Or you may be a born Muslim, and then as you live in this society, you may begin to incur, or you may begin to, adopt things that may start corrupting your heart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to speak about various things that will give us an indication. Because if I don't give you, if you don't know what your symptoms are, then you won't know what to deal with, what to address. You don't know your symptoms. You think you got it made. You think because of the fact you're making salat, you're doing all the outward actions, you're good. And then when you begin to see that, no, you may not be that way. Because hypocrites were disciplined to do the outward actions. So don't never fortify or think that your religion is strong due to the fact that you have disciplined yourself to do all the outward actions. Hypocrites were experts at doing outward actions. But Allah would tell them what? يَقُولُونَ بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ مَا لَيْسَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. That what is a hypocrite? One who shows you outwardly what is not inwardly. So Allah would say, they say with their mouths what is not in their hearts. So that was one of the major trials on the Muslims in the past, and even in our community today, are those that are among us that do all the outward actions, but in actuality their hearts are not believers, and so they try to usurp and try to find a way to destroy Islam from within. You see, so therefore Allah puts more emphasis on what is inside than on the outside. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran to beware of the day يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا من أتى الله بقلب سليم. That Allah says that beware of the day to where your wealth nor your children will benefit you, except that you come to Allah with a sound heart. So here Allah is saying that He don't care if you come, on the day of judgment with you was a wealthy person, it means nothing to Allah. You had a lot of children, a lot of grandchildren, it means nothing to Allah. You had big homes, it means nothing to Allah. If you don't come to Allah with a pure, clean heart, as you worked hard to try to devote yourself to keep it pure, then it means nothing to Allah if you don't come that way to Him. So therefore, He's letting us know to be more concerned about inwardly. Why? Because I'll tell you an example. If I do an action and I pray and I give charity, it's a good act, right? From the outside, it's a good act. But if I do it with bad intentions, will Allah accept it? What if I pray just to show off? What if there's a Muslim sister that I want her to think that I'm very righteous and religious? So I pray, Allah, right? You see? Now, do I get any reward from Allah? So therefore, the action of the heart, the acceptance of the deed is contingent upon what is in the heart, no matter what the outside shows. If the heart, if the act is not done with sincerity, then Allah doesn't accept it. That makes sense, right? So ikhlas, sincerity, you can't see sincerity on the outside. You can guess and think that, okay, he seems like he's a good person, she seems like he's a good person, but you never know what's in the heart. A few weeks ago, there was a man who went into his home with his children and he blew up the place. I think y'all probably heard about it on the news. I forgot where it was, but but he was, I think he had killed his ex-wife, and it was under some child custody. Anyway, he goes into the house, blows up the house, commits suicide, got the 2 children, killed them too. Very egregious type of crime. The point of the matter is, when you looked at him from the outside, you had he showed no indication that he was psychotic like this. You see, he had nice little, shirt on, nice little hush puppy shoes, Timberlands, whatever it is. Looked like a very nice guy. Goes in the house, blows up the house with his children in it. So therefore, you are never able to make an accurate assessment of the reality of an individual by what you see on the outside. And that's why Allah talks about the inside. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna Allah la yanduru ila ajsamikum wala ila suwarakum walakin ila qulubikum." Allah does not look at your outward. Allah does not look at your bodies. He doesn't look at your faces, but he looks at the condition of your heart. And so in this society here that's driven by all the outward synthetic artificial, this is what we live in. We're dealing with a society that just feeds us a steady diet to be concerned about how you look on the outside. But nobody is really talking about how to keep the heart on the inside pure. So you got perverted hearts, you got sick hearts, you got hard hearts, you got cold hearts. And if you notice, most of the time when people see actions on the outside, they describe you by the condition of your heart. He's a good person. You see he's always doing good things, or she's always doing good things. What we say, they got a good heart. That brother got a good heart. He's got, why? We're basing our assessment on what we see outwardly when we really don't know what's inwardly, but we believe that the outward is a reflection and an indication on what's inwardly. So therefore, this is part of just our life as human beings. We kind of assess things based on what we see outwardly. But we have to be careful to not think that that is the only indication, that's what it is. I'm making my prayers, I'm making salah, I'm doing everything right, and so therefore that's an indication of my heart. That may not necessarily be true, or it may not necessarily mean that you are strong. You may be able to discipline yourself, but you may not be that strong. Now, sometimes you may have to decide and look at yourself and see, okay, what's a symptom of a bad heart? Well, one day I was able to see something within my own heart. On the north side, anybody that know about Devon, I know a lot of us here know about Devon. On Devon, it's hard to find parking up north, period. Okay, so I live on Devon. So one time, if you don't come home by 9 o'clock, you're not gonna find a parking space. You gotta go round and around. So this particular time, I got home late, didn't find a parking space. So what I did was I parked in front of a meter, right? But with the intentions on what? Waking up in the morning to move my car. That particular morning, I woke up at about 7:30, all right? Prayed Fajr, then went back to sleep, and then we woke up at 7:30. I'm thinking that they began to start writing parking tickets at about 7. I forgot it was 9. So the minute you know how you wake up, and the minute I woke up, man, I jump up, said, man, I gotta go out there and get my, so I run out, put my pants on, whatever, run out, man, as I'm going to move the car, I thought about something. You know what I thought about? I never wake up for Fajr and move like that for a while. Never. How many of us that when Fajr come in, if y'all pray, y'all do pray Fajr, right? That's the first prayer in Islam, Fajr. No, I'm just joking. Like, damn. He was like, yeah, I didn't know. It's 5. We'll talk about that later. If you think about it, we are sluggish when it comes to moving for Allah. Be honest. Now, when it was me fearing a $50 ticket, man, I jumped up real quick. I mean, like I was like 14, you know what I'm saying? Just jumped up and I'm running. I'm like, wait a minute, you never move like that for God. But you move like this for man. And so I caught myself. I said, man, I got a problem. Because number one of the signs of a sickness in your heart is when you move slowly and sluggishly when it comes to religious matters. When it comes to things personally for you, Bulls game on, Super Bowl, let's hurry up and get there. You passing red lights. You know why? Because is that not true? You passing red lights, right? You almost killing people. Watch out, man. You know Derrick Rose, you know what I'm saying? He's back. He's back from a bad back, right? So we want to see it, right? But when it comes to the masjid and when it comes to salat, sometimes we see what? We see people come in late, right? Hey, Islam alaikum. I wasn't talking about you, just happen to come in. So, That's one of the indications. When you don't move fast. And Allah speaks about the Quran. In the Quran, He speaks about the hypocrites. And He says what? He says, وَإِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالًا. Now, why does Allah give us these descriptions in the Quran? So that we can, number one, see the symptoms and then be able to look at yourself. And understand this, that these talks are to be, you have to be conscious about trying to help yourself. All right? It's not about thinking about no one else. It's about helping yourself. I read a book one time. It was 33 signs of a hypocrite. Okay? 33 signs. Now, we know in Islam, that's the last thing. I don't care what you are. You could be a gangbanger. You could be whatever you're a part of. Anytime somebody say you're a hypocrite, what they're saying is you're not for real. You're not real about what you claim to be. So nobody likes that. So we know in Islam, the last thing you want to be called is a hypocrite. Why? Because you know you're not getting nothing with Allah. So I read a book about 33 signs of a hypocrite. Why? Because I think that's important for me to know the signs so that we can do what? Eradicate these things if they were in us. Boy, I tell you, it was the toughest book that I have ever read in my life. 17 of them was me. 17. As I'm reading, it's just getting worse and worse. And I'm saying, man, that's me. Then I got that characteristic. And you have to fight it because your ego be trying to push it away and say, no, that's not me, that's not me. No, when you hear these talks, and they're talking about signs of diseases in the heart, be expecting to hear something that might step on your toe, and don't take it personal because you're here to try to better yourself. So I was reading it, and I was listening to it, and it was tough, and I was reading it. And then when it got to number 18, and that wasn't me, the first thing I said was, that's Mustafa. That's how we do. Ain't me, that's just Mustafa there, you know what I'm saying? That's Madyun. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because we quick to try to deflect things and see the illnesses in other people and not ourselves. So when I got to 18 and 19, I had all kinds. That's Muhammad, yeah, that's Mustafa, and that's him, you know. So, but it's all about trying to dig in deep and remove it from yourself. Another symptom. Another symptom is when we're comfortable with doing things that's not right. Now, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إِذَا سَرَّتْكَ حَسَنَاتُكَ وَسَاءَتْ سَيِّئَاتُكَ فَأَنْتَ الْمُؤْمِنُ. If you find joy in doing what's right, and if you find like sadness, or you find yourself feeling a little depressed when you do something wrong, because nobody's perfect, nobody's angels. So we may do something wrong, but if you do something wrong and you feel real bad about it, then that's a sign that your heart is still clean. It's a sign that you are a believer. But when you find yourself doing wrong and don't feel anything, then that may be an indication that your heart has become so encrusted with wrongdoing that now it has no effect on you whatsoever. So understand this, that if you're doing wrong, I don't care what it is, man, you're looking at, videos, you're looking at porn, whatever it is, smoke, whatever it may be, that is a wrong, sinful action according to our Deen of Islam, and you feel comfortable with doing it, and no shame, and even if you got to the point where you don't even care if you're doing it on the outside, where people can see you, then know that that's a sign of a curse. That's a sign of a heart that has become so sick that now you don't even have any shame. So when you get, this is another thing that this society does. It works on your heart to where it tries the best to remove shame from you. Do as you please. Whatever you like. Whatever floats your boat. Hey, it's your world. It's your body. It's you. Whatever, no, that's not the way we are as believers and Muslims. It's about whatever Allah sees that is pleasing and what He sees as displeasing, then we have to abide by that. If not, you will never have happiness in life. And that's the bottom line. So therefore, we don't take that attitude about it's your life. You'll find your life in hell. And that's what Allah, Allah has a place for people who want to believe that they don't have any type of responsibility. Allah says in the Quran, does man consider that he been left alone with no responsibility to do anything? I just created you and you can just come here and just blunt it up. Just do whatever you want to do. No, that's not the way this world is. You have responsibility. You have obligations. And you have accountability for your actions. So therefore, if you don't feel like you want to do it, then find another earth. Find somebody else's land to live on. But Allah is not going to tolerate the human being to come come here, he lay all this out for you, give you food, give you oxygen, give you life, give you health, give you all of this, and then you just act like he don't exist. Now, he's not tolerating that. And the human being wouldn't do this. You're not going to invest in someone and help them and educate them, and then they don't give you any thanks. And then, no, that's not the way it works. So therefore, that's what Allah is demanding from human beings. So, if you find yourself committing sins and you're not moved, it don't bother you anymore. And it don't even have to be a sin like you doing something wrong. It could be not doing what you're supposed to do. Say, for example, you miss Fajr. You wake up, you just drinking some orange juice and there's nothing. Something's wrong with you. You did not perform your duty. You miss Dhuhr, you miss Asr, you miss Maghrib. You know, this is all a part of it. If you can miss Salats and don't feel anything, then there's something wrong. Now, what do? You start working on that, because we all have that. Sometimes we may miss the Salat. Sometimes you may not be doing everything you're supposed to do. Why? Because you have to address those illnesses. And one of the ways that you address it is by knowledge. You have to have knowledge. Because just saying you're a Muslim, or just saying you're whatever, a Crip, a Blood, or whatever, eventually you're going to be tested to see. I remember growing up in the hood, and they would always tell, it was a particular gang that was around. It was called the Disciples, Gangster Disciples. There was a lot of them, black gangsters, gangster disciples. But I remember that just being in the environment, it would make you just, pretend like you're a gang member. It was some people that was serious about this gang banging, and then there was some people that just, hey, it's just a fun thing, put up the signs or whatever. And then when something happened, and then them guys that's serious came to the guys that was just faking and put a gun in his hand, now he's like, what's this for? Oh, you're a gangster disciple, remember? Well, we need to fight them guys over there. I was just doing something, you know what I'm saying? I go to school. No, you're not today. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the way things are. You see, people are going to always make you act on what it is that you've been claiming you are. So understand this about your deed. Now, another thing, we talk about another sign of a sickness in the heart is when you don't find any displeasure with things that are not right. You don't have to be doing it. But if you see things in the society that is a violation of the limits of Allah, and you don't have no bad feeling about it. Remember the famous hadith the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran." Whoever sees a wrongdoing, فَلْيُغَيِّرُهُ بِيَدِهِ, then let him change it with his hand. فَإِنْ لَمْ يَسْتَطِعْ, but if he's unable to, then bilisani, then speak out against it. Because the obligation of the people who are righteous is to constantly think about doing that which will help to preserve righteousness in the society. It's got to be people that does things with what's wrong. That's why you have anger. You know the wisdom of anger? If you wasn't created with anger, then you would let anything go. But anger is supposed to be guided. You see, you have them people be like, hey, you know me, I got an anger problem. Well, you need to straighten that anger problem up, because you're going to find yourself laid down in a grave somewhere because somebody ain't going to take that anger. So therefore, anger is there, but you must have the proper temperament to know how to channel the anger. Because anger is there as a wisdom so that you can deal with things that need to be dealt with. Because if you didn't get angry, I could do whatever I want to do with you. You know what I'm saying? Take your money, you know what I'm saying? Go in your house, whatever. You be like, it's not like that. You got to get angry. Whoa, what you doing? You get angry. I could just get your little brother and sister and take them. No, anger is there in order to deal with things that need to be dealt with. But if you don't have guidance, then you get angry about every little thing, and that's another thing in this society. It's about trying to get you to just be mad about everything. Somebody step on your toe, somebody, say something. I mean, it's just crazy how the society, you gotta have control of yourself. So, I had a point that I wanted to mention. I can't even remember. So anyway, when you see the violations of the limits, so the Prophet ﷺ said, whenever you see a wrong, then change it what? By doing something with your hand. If you're unable to, then speaking out against it. No, that's not right. Don't do that. He said, or if you can't do anything, then what? Then don't accept it with your heart. Hit that heart again. Why? Because that is the remaining of your faith. That's what you have to do. That's the remaining part of your faith. And you know what's interesting about Muslims? What's the interesting about us is that, what is it about us that we would do any sin except eat pork? You notice that? Have you noticed that, man? It always puzzles me. Brother ain't praying, got 2 girlfriends, getting high, but he wants some halal. Everything about him was haram, but he will not eat pork. Isn't that strange about us? You go to a restaurant, he got 2 girlfriends, he drunk, and he talking about, is that the biha? What difference does it make? I'm Muslim. So it's something about if you eat that, that's like the final transgression. You are a Kafir. You are not a Muslim. You know, it's really interesting. I see it all the time. You know, I say, wow, man, that's amazing. We do anything, but it's just, we're not going to eat that pork. You feel like you just really just not a Muslim if you eat that pork. You know what I'm saying? So I say, subhanAllah. So therefore, there's a beautiful hadith of Jibreel, where the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah commanded to Jibreel, the angel, to go and destroy a particular nation because of their sins. So as Jibreel went to destroy this nation, he noticed that there was a righteous person among them. So he goes back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he said, Rabbi, inna fihim fulanan abduka fulanan lam ya'asika tarafata ayn. He goes to Allah, and Allah already knows, but he want to make sure he's doing the right thing. So he goes back to Allah and he say, oh Allah, my Lord. He said, this town that you want me to destroy, there's a slave from among you who have never disobeyed you. Tarafat al-ayn. Anybody in here Arabic? Anybody know Arabic? What is tarafat al-ayn? The blinking of an eye. The flicker of an eye. So that means that this man has been on it. He's never disobeyed Allah. Has done all his prayers, all his charity. He's just doing everything righteous and devoted. So Jibreel feel like, man, I can't destroy. This guy here, he's so righteous. Then maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I shouldn't destroy this town. So he goes to Allah and tells Allah. What does Allah tell him? Allah said, "Aqlib alayhim wa alayhim." Allah says, destroy him. And when he said aqlib alayhi, it means start with him first. And then aqlib alayhim. And then destroy the rest of the people. So now what's the reason for this? Here's a person that's been devoted to the point where he haven't disobeyed Allah with a flicker of an eye. So why would Allah tell him to destroy him? He should be protected. He should be saved. But why? The reason is afterwards. He says, Inna wajahu lam yatama'ara fiyya qatta. He says, because his face never showed any kind of displeasure for the things that was being done around him. So therefore, even if you don't do it, your lackadaisical attitude about it is though you have done it anyway. So therefore, you held accountable. So you understand that if you are looking at things that are violations of the principles of Islam, that are violations of what Allah has said, and you just walk past it like it ain't nothing, then that's a problem. Now, you can't do anything about it. Most of the things that's conducted here that may be haram, there's nothing we can do about it. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, if you can't do nothing about it, then your last responsibility is to make sure that at least you say, man, there's nothing I can do, but man, that's bad that they're doing that. Then you get reward for that. But if you walk by and you just, and you're part of it, and you see and you laughing at it or whatever, and this is a problem. And now, how do you know that this is a problem with us? Well, because sometimes we watch the game. We watch the football game. We watch the basketball game. And in a halftime show with Madonna, we ain't turning at all. You know what I'm saying? We're like, man, what you say? I'm just watching and studying the shaitan. And how do you lie? You like watching it, you see? So when we see things and desire things and incline to things that is unhealthy for our spirituality, then that means the shaitan is exploiting a disease that he has seen in your heart, and now he's just pricking you with it and inclining you towards it. But if you see a big commercial and you turn it off, then that's a sign that, okay, you may want to watch the game. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with watching the game. That's part of our recreation. It's a part of America. But to sit there and continue to watch, can you imagine Abu Bakr and the Prophet ﷺ watching a Coors beer commercial? You know what I'm saying? They talking about Coors. And Abu Bakr talking about, you see that Prophet? And they start getting thirsty. You know what I'm saying? No, they're not going to do anything like that. He probably wouldn't be watching a game, no way, right? But still, this is what we have to do. Now, how many of us have seen this? How many of the beer commercials? You don't turn. You don't have. A man wants to be. There's those moments where he's going to be vulnerable to it if it continues to keep flashing in his face. The more you expose yourself to those flashes, the more perverted your heart becomes. And that's why you have people that rape because they kept getting these flashes. Like, I don't rape just all of a sudden like that. It's after a period of time that he keep watching this, keep looking at this, keep watching TV, flashes, porn. So, you know, I got to have it. And then next thing you know, he goes and commit a crime. So therefore, that's because he's constantly working on his heart. The Prophet ﷺ said what? Every time you commit a sin, there's a black mark on your heart, right? And then what? He says, and if you don't do something to remove it, like asking Allah for forgiveness, doing a righteous action, the Prophet ﷺ said what? Fear Allah. And follow up bad deeds with good deeds, and it will erase the bad deeds. So what is he saying? He's saying always do righteous. But because of the fact that that's impossible, then when you do something wrong, then try your best to follow it up with something good, and then that will remove that stain. But when you keep doing wrong, then what happens? What happens? Then your heart becomes totally dark, and now when truth is told to you, it don't move you. What happens? You get tired. How many times we watch double overtime of Kobe or whatever? Not sleepy at all. But when it comes to Quran, when it comes to Hadith, if I don't crack jokes with y'all gonna be asleep. That's bottom line. Why? Because this is what is a symptom of the heart. When we find ourselves sluggish and lazy and not moved by the verses of the Quran or the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we all are affected by that. And one last thing, and then we're in here, we can ask questions. There was a man who, you know, in the Quran, when you read those ayats that has sajda, you know, it's about, I think about 12, 14 of them in the Quran, something to that effect, where you have certain verses, when you read them, if you want, it's not obligatory, but if you want, you can make the prostration. So there's a verse in the Quran that says, وَيَخِرُونَ لِأَذْقَانَ يَبَكُونَ وَيَزِيدُهُمْ خُشُوعًا, that they prostrate their faces crying, weeping, and it increases them in their humility. So the man did it. It's called sajda tilawa. So he made the prostration, but there was no tears. And so he rebuked himself. He said, now there's the prostration, now where are the tears? So he caught himself. Why? Because he's looking at saying that just to do the prostration means nothing if I'm not getting the intended result of doing it. I'm supposed to be crying. Allah said, so I'm doing it, but I'm not crying. So therefore, something's wrong. And one last bad symptom of the heart, and then we'll talk about cures in the question and answer. One other symptom of the heart is stinginess. When you are stingy and tight, then that's called bukhul. And that's an indication of a sickness in the heart. That everything that we have has been given to us. We come from sperm, so you didn't plan who your parents were going to be. You didn't plan what your economic status was going to be. Everything has been given to you. So when Allah gives you, then He expects you not to give it all, but He expects you to do what? Especially if you've been blessed and been fortunate, because He allows other people to be less fortunate as a responsibility upon us. So when we see people that are less fortunate, then we have to have a heart that leans toward them. But if we live in a world that keep telling you, get yours, get yours, get yours, it's about you, it's your money, money in the bank, girl, what you're drinking is all about you, then what's going to happen? You're not going to be caring about the one that's less fortunate, and you're going to develop stinginess, and Allah speaks ill about the ones who are stingy, and that's why the Sahaba will praise so much, because they would do what? يُؤْثِرُونَ عَلَى أَنفُسِهِمْ وَلَوْ كَانَ بِهِمْ خَصَاصَةٌ, or the ayat says, and they preferred their brothers over themselves, even though they were in greater need of it. So when you are able to give, when you are in greater need of something, then that means that you have control over your heart. That's how you fight stinginess, by doing the opposite, by giving. Ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, he was the scholar who used to teach Bukhari. Bukhari, we all know Bukhari. Ibn Mubarak. So he had a neighbor who was a Jew, and he would give his neighbor clothes, food, constantly just give his neighbor. Imagine having a neighbor that just would feed you before he would feed his own family. And it was a Jew, wasn't even a Muslim, it was a Jew. But he was being very kind. Why? Because this is what the deen teaches us, to be neighborly, to be kind to your neighbor. So as he kept giving it to him, eventually someone came to the Jew and asked the Jew to buy his home. So at that time, it was about 1,000 dinars, which is like silver pieces or coin pieces in Arabic. So he asked for 2,000. So they asked him, man, $2,000 for this home? He said, yeah, $1,000 for my home, and then $1,000 for having a neighbor like Ibn Mubarak. You got to pay for him. You know what I'm saying? You don't get them all the time. You know what I'm saying? If you don't hurry up, go up 15. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, afterwards they said he became Muslim. But I'm just saying that when you give, then it helps your own heart, and it helps to bring softness in your heart. So therefore, one of the ways to address any type of disease of stinginess is you got to give. One way to work towards addressing the laziness and sluggishness is you got to start working. You see, so therefore, these are little things that we have to look. One way is to address those little perversions that you might have is turn that stuff off, man, and stop listening to it and stop feeding yourself with it, because if not, then it's just going to encrust the heart and destroy the heart, and then it's going to be difficult for you to do things for the sake of Allah. And then when the test comes, you're going to fold. You're going to fold. You can't make any sacrifices. You can't really stand up. You can't, because of the fact that your heart becomes so weak and so sick that now the sickness have overcome it. So you have to deal with it, and you have to try your best. So inshallah, those just some little things there that we may take a look at. There's a whole lot of other things, but we'll just leave it at that. So inshallah, we're in there, and then if there are any questions about anything pertaining to the subject, then we can feel free to answer. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Any questions? Man, that talk wasn't that good. No questions? That's always a good sign. Plus, anybody that asks a question, I usually go another 20 minutes with one question. That's to deter the next person. They be like, don't ask. We'll never get out of here. No, hey, any questions? At the heart? I guess that's good. Yes. You didn't have to ask. Right.
So, living in this society, we have a lot of opportunities. Yeah, we have a lot of opportunities to entertain ourselves, and with movies and music and video games. So how do we strike a balance with that in our day-to-day lives?
Well, just like you're doing now, there's going to always be people that's going to be better than others, okay? But like you said, the balance. You know why? Because everybody doesn't have to be like everybody, and everybody doesn't have to be the same way. But if you find yourself, number one, first and foremost, is make sure that you never neglect your obligations. So if these things here are holding you up from making the prayer on time, something's wrong. If these things here cause you not to make salat at all, or that you don't come to this affair, say for example, you're so busy with some type of entertainment that you don't come to something like this, you have to continue to keep exposing yourself to those environments that will keep feeding you knowledge to help to keep you firm. That's why we read the Quran. And this is one of the ways that, Shaitan has deceived the Muslims, because now we read the Quran with no understanding. How many of us read the Arabic and just read it and don't have any idea what we're saying, what we're reading? You see, so therefore this happened many years ago. Historically, this was intended to do. When they was making translations, then they began to start pushing Arabic again. And when they start pushing Arabic, they start pushing Arabic with no commentary. So now the Muslims feel very comfortable about reading the Quran, but they're not getting any feeling out of it simply because they don't know what's being said. So therefore, you have to continue to expose yourself to environments that will give you knowledge. So therefore, you put the balance on that. If you give 2 hours to the television or movies or something like that, then hey, you put 2 or 3 hours and give extra to something Islamically, whether it's reading a book, whether it's listening to some CDs, whether it's being actively involved in the Muslim Students Association, whether it's part of some food drive, something to continue to keep polishing the heart, because a lot of times the things that affect the heart are so subtle. You understand what I'm saying here? It's so subtle. You don't see all the things, the images and stuff that come. That's why I did that little drill, because everybody think they're intelligent. This is very simple, but then when they start realizing, damn, man, we do more what we see than what we actually hear. So therefore, you have to protect yourself. So you got to do whatever you can. And when you see that you've gone a little too far in something, then hey, pull back. I've been watching the Bulls game sometimes, and I have to say La ilaha illallah. Because why? Because I don't want to be so riveted in sport and play that it causes me to, to forget the reality that this is not just a game. This is serious. Every one of us gonna die. Nobody. I mean, I'm serious. I don't care what you do. You can be a vegan. You know what I'm saying? You can bathe in aloe vera juice. You can eat carrots all day. You gonna die. You going down. Ain't nobody getting out of here alive. I'm telling you now. Don't get scared. You gonna get out of here alive. I see the exit. I'm not talking about here. You see, so that's the thing. Yes. And you know what? The Prophet ﷺ said that the hearts, they do become rusty. He did say that. He said the heart, that's why it's called qalb. Because yuqallabu means something that flips. He said, so sometimes, man, the heart, it flips. Sometimes, you know, during Ramadan, we feel very spirited or whatever. And then after Ramadan or whatever, later on, we feel kind of down. So everybody fluctuates. Go up now. I don't care who you are, Sheikh, Maulana, whatever it is, whoever you think you are, Imam. Everybody goes up and everybody goes down. So what you have to do is, with those moments of down, then you pick it up. Those moments of up, and you know you enjoy it because you know it's going back down, you know, sometime soon. So he said that what you do is you read the Quran and you keep thinking about the reality of death. Why is death so important to think about? Because it puts a check on all your little inspirations and your desires so that you won't go, when you think about death, it causes you not to become too intoxicated with something that's temporary anyway. But when you don't think about death, and I talked to a guy one day when I was driving limo, I had a limo business, and the guy behind me says, how's your day? I said, oh man, every day is a good day. I said, try missing one. So he say, oh, I don't think about that. I said, well, whether you think about it or not, it's not gonna go away. You're gonna die. You know, he said, yeah, I guess I'm just deluding myself. But people don't want to talk about death. Why? Because they want to be completely subsumed in materialism to where they feel like that if I can just not think about it, it won't happen. Ask Whitney. I'm not trying to be shame. I'm talking about real. She had money, she had this or whatever, but she's gone now at 48. And there's a whole lot of people at the cemetery that was big people, CEOs, presidents of this, whatever, you know, gangbang, whatever it is, they're going down. So therefore, that helps us. You know, I remember I got my first apartment. See, I told you I go about 20 minutes. No, but listen, I remember I got my first apartment. You know, it's like the biggest accomplishment is moving out of your parents' home. You know what I'm saying? So when I got my first apartment, I was happy. It was my keys, you know what I'm saying? It was, you know, like room-to-room carpet. I had 2 rooms. I had a cat. He was real cool. I was cool. You know what I'm saying? So it was like it was really nice. So I remember that I had come home from work. I was working like late, like a gas station from 11 to 7. So when I come home, the sun was up. You can see the sun coming in my front room. I had my apartment for the first time out of my parents' home. The cat walked up. I'm like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, man, this is the life. And then I thought about the reality, man. This ain't forever. And then I got up and was like, okay, let me, you know what I'm saying? I had to snap out of that. And there's people who live to try to get deep into that. That's why they get into drugs and they get into alcohol and they just get into a whole, because I just want to, but the reality, and that's why no matter how drunk you get, you always sober up. You see the wisdom of Allah? So you'll never say, I was just hard, no, you're going to sober up and then this thing going to come back to reality. And then you're going to get sober again, you know, because he wants you to be sober to really think about reality. And that death, it'll sober you up. Yes. Question. Anybody? I know you want to ask. Go ahead. You look like it.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I do. Okay. You were talking about if you're comfortable doing, one of the symptoms is comfortable doing things that aren't right. But is there a fine line between, like, I guess, judging or saying, like, oh, that's not right, but, like, other people are going to be like, well, you're judging me now. I don't know. Do you see that?
Yeah, well, the thing is that we don't, you know, many people say nobody has the right to judge. Nobody has the right to judge. That's a general statement. But to qualify that statement is no one has the right to judge by their own criteria. But we make judgments according to Allah's criteria. So if Allah say that something is wrong, and we believe in Allah, that's what La ilaha illallah means, that you have committed yourself to accept what He laid down as law. Now, how well you're able to devote yourself to it, that's something else. We all have our moments, you know. But the issue is you bear witnessing to this oneness in God, Allah, is you saying that, hey, I have committed myself to attempt to try to devote myself to belief in the fact that that everything that He says is what it is. So if He say this is good, then you do it. If He say this is bad, then you don't do it. If He say you can eat this, you do it. If He say you shouldn't eat this, then you don't do it. He's God. He should have the right. Again, we live in a society that tries to distort our criterion. And so it gives you the criterion of what? Of man's law. You know, and ignore the fact that God has laid down law. How can you dismiss Him and He created you? How can you dismiss Him? So therefore, when you do make a judgment, that's why I said sometimes you may be in a situation to what? You may not be able to speak about it because the odds may be against you. You know, you may be telling start running after you. And if you get run, you know what I'm saying, you're gonna be in trouble. So I'm just saying that sometimes it's just a matter of when you see something that's wrong, if you're able to correct it, because it might be in your own family. It might be some people that's very close to you that you may be able to give good and sincere advice.